I will scold you by name and call your parents to listen to me scolding you online if you don't listen. All right. Okay, well, let's continue then. So what we want to talk about now are how cells can be organized into groups of cells we call tissues, how tissues can be organized into groupings that we call organs, and then how organs can work together in an entire organism. And that's essentially what we're talking about. So first we want to talk about the hierarchy of how an animal body is organized. And a lot of these things come straight out of the textbook. That picture comes out of the textbook. If you don't want to draw the picture, I simply have a simple, flow chart that runs across the bottom describing the system increasing in complexity, becoming more complex. So cells put cells together, group them, and you get tissues. And we will talk later in this particular lesson about the different types of tissues. But you've come across the words for them because the tissues essentially take on the same name as the cells. So we can have muscle tissue made up of many muscle cells. All right, we can have skin, tissue of skin, which is made up of many epithelial cells or skin cells. Putting together many different types of tissue, like muscle and connective tissue, and whatever types of tissues there are. Again, they're not on my forefront of my mind because I don't teach this very often. But put them together and you get a functioning unit that we call an organ. In my flow chart here, the organ we're describing here is a heart of some sort that has a specified job, in this case to pump blood. Put various organs together along with veins and arteries and capillaries, and you get what is called an organ system. In this case, we're talking about the circulatory system here of this kitty cat, and you put those different organs together, and you have an organ system that then performs a certain function, getting certain gases into cells and out of cells. And put all the organs together, the circulatory system along with the musculoskeletal system and the digestive system and all those things that we're going to talk about, and we get the overall organism that obviously lives and thrives. All right? Pretty straightforward stuff. Nobody's drawing a little cat here at this point in time. Meg, is that what you're finishing off, a picture of the cat? No? I can go on? All right, excellent. So let's then talk about each of these levels of the hierarchy. And really not much to say about this because that's what our whole previous half of this unit was about. It was all about the cells. Basic unit of life, it's at the bottom of the pyramid. Not all cells are the same, and cells have specialized functions. And one of the last notes we did, that stem cell lesson where we talked about what the stem cells can become, was a list of those different types of cells. As I'm thinking about it in terms of the test, I actually just finished marking them before you came in. I did get them into my paper mark book, but I did not get them into the computer mark book. So when I get home tonight, I will be putting them into the computer mark book, and I will upload an updated mark sometime this evening. And no, I can't give you an exact time. I have no idea. No, because I still have Atlanta to write. Yeah. Cells are pretty straightforward. We just discussed them. Here's some images representing some of the cells that we studied. Can anybody name any of these? Anybody recognize any? What do you got, Kendall? Red blood cell. That's the easiest one, sticking right out there. Yeah, Mackenzie? Which one? Yeah, the lower right, a nerve cell of some sort. That's correct. Brain is made up of lots of nerves, you bet. What else? Anybody recognize any others? Oh, we just all shot our hand up for the red blood cells. That's the one we saw? Yeah. Mackenzie, what do you think? Sorry, which one? No, I wouldn't say that they're white blood cells. No. Yeah, they're fat cells. Yeah. Yeah, when we dissect the frog, if you get a good fat one, there's all kinds of fat cells in there. It's exciting. What do you got? Which one? This one? This. I agree. Yes, that's muscle cells. You bet. They line up in a certain way so that when they contract, there's some kind of electric charge that brings them together. Again, way beyond my knowledge in this particular thing, but they have a very linear structure. Yes, muscle cells. To be honest, I'm not sure between these two. I would say there's some kind of a bone cell, whether it's that one or that one, I'm not sure exactly. One could be skin cells. I guess this could be skin cells, right, because they're kind of overlapping, that type of thing. This could be muscle cells. Again, I'm not sure. These cells here are a specialized cell, and when I taught the applied level science, I go into greater detail on the function of the ear, just because it kind of lends itself to fit in for some time. But these are cells that are found in a specialized structure that's within the ear. It's the inner ear that allows us to hear. It does the sound processing, and these things are called cilia. All right, and these cilia are on these cells, and when we hear within this organ, those little cells vibrate, and when they move mechanically, when they physically move back and forth, they develop a little charge at the base of them, which then is sent by nerve cells to our ears, and we hear. So these are called cilia, and they're found in the inner ear. Right? Again, that's just some information since it was there. Okay, let's talk about tissue. Yep. Yep. Yes, you should. Yep. You might want to write it about 3 times, maybe, for maximum retention. No, you don't really need to write it 3 times. It's a little Harry Potter reference. No? Nothing? Oh, man, I shouldn't have distracted you. Just write the note, please. So tissues are a group of similar specialized cells. It's called tissue. The cells in a tissue work together to perform a specific function. So epithelial or skin cells, protect the surface of our body. They maintain the structure of it. They keep certain elements out. Muscle cells for movement, obviously. Nerve cells for sensing, and bone cells for structure, so that our body has a structure. The cells involved must contain more organelles needed to perform these duties. Cells lining the trachea have many Golgi bodies to produce mucus, and also cilia to move dirty mucus away from the lungs. So the trachea is that main tube that runs down to your lungs. There you go. I coughed on command there. In that, and well, anyway, in that trachea, right? There'll be lots of Golgi bodies in those cells, so that there's mucus being formed, and then the cilia, which are the little hairs. We talked about that in the last unit. The cilia kind of pulse in such a way that they push the mucus up, so that that mucus ends up being up out of your lungs and not sitting or resting in your lungs, which would not be good. That's what a biologist told me once, that it isn't good. That's all I know. That's all I got. No need to write this down, because in a moment when I'm done the note, you will copy that table 1 out of the textbook, which essentially has a list of the different types of tissue. But just to go over this with you, so epithelial tissue, all right, they line surfaces in the body. So epithelial tissue counts in terms of the skin, but we would also say like that the surface of the trachea, which then lines a surface which comes in contact with air, they would be made up of epithelial cells. Also, like in your esophagus that goes down to your stomach and the inside lining of your stomach, you would call those also epithelial cells. So any cells that are on a surface that kind of make contact with an external source or perhaps food or things like that, we would say that they're made up of epithelial cells. So they line surfaces of the body. Muscle cells, they're made up of fibers that can contract. They're obviously in charge of motion in our body. Whenever we want to move, we contract a muscle, and that's a pretty obvious job there. Nervous tissue consists of cells with projections that transmit electrical signals. So we could be talking about, obviously, nerves that are to the outside of the body. We'll talk about the nervous system. We call that the peripheral nervous system. And we're also talking about the brain and the spinal cord. We call that the spinal nervous system, or the central nervous system. And then we can have connective tissues, all right? And so connective tissues come in all kinds of groupings here. All 3 or all 4 of these are considered connective tissues. So loose connective tissues acting as padding under the skin. So just kind of loose connective tissues that kind of makes up the bulk of your body, what you'd call your flesh, all right? And then you've got bone, which is obviously for the structure. You've got cartilage, which is kind of a pliable type structure that coats the bones and the joints. Again, we'll talk about that more. And this is kind of a tricky one to maybe understand, but blood is also considered a connective tissue. It allows for a connection to be made between, say, the lungs and the cells to transport gases like oxygen out to the cells and carbon dioxide from the cells back to the lungs to be exhaled. So again, all of these are considered as connective tissue. As I stated, if you had printed this out, then that table on page 76, which I already made reference to at the end of the test, you may have already made a note of all of these different types of tissues at the end of the test, and if you've had, then you've already done this procedure. If you didn't get a chance to do this, I simply copied the table out of the book that has some blank things in there, and you can eventually fill that in, and you can then keep that in your notes. So whether you made the table yesterday without the pictures, or whether you have the nice pictures because you printed it off, it doesn't matter to me, but I'm not going to make a note of all of these different types of tissues. I want you to make your own. Is everybody kind of clear on the way that's going to be? I'm not going to have you do that right now, because I'd rather get to the end of the note, let you do that, and then when I have to leave, I'll start the video. Okay? And again, that's just discussing the same stuff that I kind of discussed on the slide. Okay. Now, next step up, organs. Yep. I'm not going to talk about that right now. When we get to the digestive system, I will discuss it then. All right? Just because I've got to go in a bit, and I'm in the middle of the video, and we'll get to the end of the video and get it stuff. But when we get to the digestive system, I'll talk about it. Okay? Okay. Organs contain different tissue types that work together to perform a certain task. The stomach obviously has to have epithelial cells, right? That coat the inside surface, probably even coat the outside surface. There has to be muscle cells because your stomach does churn. It does work to churn up whatever food is in there, so that stomach does move. All right. There's also I'm trying to think of what other cells there would be in the stomach. There'd have to be connective tissue of some sort that kind of keeps it. There's got to be blood vessels that are flowing to it that kind of have to take some of the nutrients away if that's what's being done at that particular point. And then obviously we've got various other organs, the heart, the brain, the liver, the pancreas. They all have a specific function. Now we're just talking about the individual organs. The next step up, oh, there's another example of the organ. Oh, look, there's the stomach, right? So there's red blood cells, there's muscle cells, obviously nerve cells to tell you if you're hungry or not. Cells that secrete enzymes and mucus to protect the cells, or to protect the internal lining. So there's an example of an organ. Now we're to organ system. And this is the way we're really going to learn kind of the rest of this unit, by breaking the human down into the various systems. And each day we will look at a main system. One day we're going to look at 2 of them, and that'll take 4 of the 5 days in that first week back. So we'll be looking at each of the systems. And that's where, if you have the handout printed out with the fill in the blanks, you won't have to write all these notes. All you have to do is follow along and fill in the blanks. These contain a variety of organs, all which work together to perform a larger function. Example, the circulatory system is made up of the heart, which is an organ, obviously, the blood as connective tissues, blood vessels, veins, arteries, capillaries, all that good stuff. And we will talk about how they function. So we will talk about tissues and organs and systems all together as one. The first one we're going to talk about on the Monday when we get back is the digestive system. So we'll talk about all the organs involved in the digestive system, talk about their functions, the main ones, not all of them, the main ones. If you go on and say grade 12 university biology, I think they go over many of the systems in far more detail than what I'm doing here. This is really quite a sad representation of biology is what I'm giving you. Anyway. All right. Okay. And you don't need to write this down. Examples of organ systems. Here we've got the musculoskeletal system, which is responsible for movement. Right. You've got the muscles that are then connected to various points on the bones that then result in motion and movement. Here we've got the respiratory system. That involves the lungs and the blood vessels that then move gases in and out of the cells in order for them to function properly. And here we've got the central nervous system here, which then sends messages to the body. We also have the digestive system. Yeah, so there's all kinds of systems there that we're gonna cover. And again, I just looking at the clock, and I don't want to take too long. And the organism itself is at the top of this particular hierarchy, and nothing necessarily to write other than it's the most complex component. It's what allows it is the existence of the multicellular organism existing on its own, all right? There's no other piece needed. It can then just exist. And the last slide, again, nothing necessary to write in this one. Identify the levels of organization and place them in order. Which goes first? Yep. A, the cell. Correct. Nice job. Next. Yep. E, yep, that's a bunch of cells put together as a tissue. Nice. After that, yep. C, we have the organ, which is the heart, which is good. I agree. Next, yep. B, which is the system with the heart and all the veins and the arteries and all that. That's the circulatory system. And last, obviously, is D, this particular human being with his headphones in and just standing there. Are the headphones required as part of the system? I would think not, even though you people think that yes, if you don't have your headphones, you wouldn't be able to survive. A little joke. A little humor there. Yeah, it's good. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for that. I do mark your stuff. It's good to laugh at my jokes. That's correct. Okay, so I'm going to just stop this here.